What are we doing this morning? We are doing this morning. Semiotic analysis. By a show of hands, how many of you have encountered the word semiotics before? Okay, there's a good show of people. All right. So, would somebody be willing to tell me what this is? No, I didn't think so. Fantastic. So, semiotic analysis, first of all, is what we call a textual analysis method. We are in the realm of understanding the meaning of texts rather than the politics that underpin them, although semiotics is very closely linked to ideology as well. But the key to understanding semiotics, and indeed discourse from last week, is this. One of the key parts of being a media student is understanding not just what the meaning of texts are, but how that meaning is created. Every media producer creates a particular set of meanings. And the choices that those media producers make are deliberate. And semiotic analysis is a technique that we use to understand the choices that media producers make in order to construct the meaning of media text. And everything in that is deliberate. And the reason why I commit an entire lecture to it in this module is, even going into next semester, you will be doing practical modules where you are creating your own media text. Unwittingly or not, you will become semiotics experts, because you will be picking particular things in order to be in the media text that you do. You might be writing an article for an online newspaper or magazine. You will be selecting the visual image to go with that content. You'll be making deliberate choices about the words you use to convey meaning in them. The way that we understand that process is semiotic analysis. So, let's begin with a little basic semiotic analysis. I've put an image up on the screen, as we can all see. Can we all see the image on screen? Fantastic. What does it mean? What is this? I can tell you a couple of things before we begin. The person who was paid to do this was paid a lot of money. Right. Two, the company that paid that person to make this had a distinct set of ideas that they wanted to be, and here's a key word for the day, encoded into this image. So the process was, company approaches a advertising company, says we want these things. And the advertising company come up with this fucking monstrosity. And it is a monstrosity because there's all sorts of shit encoded into this, which is very, very disrespectful. What does it mean? What are they trying to say? Who is mumbling? Speak, enunciate, loud. I'm deaf. Doesn't anyone hear my fucking headphones? I'm clicking on your thing. Women washing up. Yeah, that's a woman, huh? I don't know a lot about women, but I do know that, right? Okay? That is a woman, and that woman is performing a domestic action, washing up. Is this women's role in society? Be very careful about answering that question. I think there is a certain demographic in society who would say, yes, that is. That demographic is not one that we should take very seriously. So firstly, we have a woman washing up. What is she washing up?
Dishes.
Yes, but what kind?
Cups. Glasses.
Glasses. They're kind of nice. It's the thing I'm drawn to here. If you see my washing up in the house, it's mankin. You know, my cup has got like the big brown stains at the bottom from tea, like, you know, and I can't be trusted with bleach. That's not going to happen. I'm going to end up in the stomach if I do that. So this is good shit. This isn't rubbish, like, you know. This is the sort of crap my sister's got, not me. You know, so, you know, this is high quality stuff. What is she washing it up in? is this? This isn't my sink. My sink is an abomination. You know, it's probably something that would be condemned by the local council for being unsafe for human occupation. But this, look at this shit. This is marble. Fucking, look at this tap. Holy crap. This is the good stuff. This is no sort of nonsense going on here. This is high end. This woman is washing up in a high end joint, right? Luxury. Expensive. The advertisers wanted the advertising agency to link the product to luxury, comfort, and expensive materials. This is not a low rent, low end product. This is something that good people use. Not just scum like me. Good people use this stuff, right? Let's focus a little bit on the woman herself. What's going on in this picture? What has she been doing? Any ideas? It's not hard. This is the trick question. what has this woman been doing? Having a pamper session. Thank you. Yes. She's wrapped in a luxurious robe with one of them sort of towel head things going on, right? Because not like, again, not like me who just rubs a towel on his head and gets on his fucking way and then complains about why you get like a cold every day in the winter and doesn't walk around with wet hair, right? No. Ha ha. There's no fucking mess in here. She's had a proper pamper session. Now, how do we know she's had a proper pamper session? What is the key indicator that this woman has taken her time and has really pampered herself? There's one key thing, the face mask. Yeah, she has a face mask on. Okay, so we have all these bits of meaning which we can join together now. We have woman who's been pampered, luxurious, expensive crap everywhere. What are they trying to tell us about the product? See, what happens in visual communication like this is all of the elements are, I'm going to trip over myself and say the word, I'm trying to hold it back here, right? But all of the elements are combined to create a meaning. So what is the overall meaning of this? What is it saying about fairy liquid, the washing up liquid? It's very simple. What is being said? It's luxurious and high-end. Yeah. Never mind the fact that you buy it in Home Bargains. It's actually luxurious and high-end stuff. This is not the crap you get from Aldi, right? Which is like no good for anyone and cleans nothing. Spoiler alert, I get the crap from Aldi. But this is good shit. Alright? Fairy liquid, if you want luxury, and if you want clean, look how fucking clean those glasses are. Holy shit. We are not talking rubbish here, we are talking the boss stuff. Unilever, the company that owns Fairy Liquid, approached the advertising agency and told them something very simple. Make us a campaign that links our product with luxurious lifestyles and luxurious living and expensive ways to live. And that's what they come up with. Very, very simple. What we have just done is a semiotic analysis, where we have pulled apart the image to analyse the individual parts of that image to assess how they have been combined together to create an overall meaning. Now, as you become more skilled with doing this, you don't need to do the pulling apart. You instantly read the image in the way that it's meant to be read, and that's a key word. We read the image in this way. But in order to succeed academically at semiotic analysis, you need to demonstrate that you can deconstruct the image. So, very important word, deconstruct. Semiotics is a process of deconstructing media texts to assess how they have been created in order to convey a particular meaning. And that is pretty much all semiotics is. Now, there is more to it. And that's what I'm going to talk about now in the next hour or so. So, I'm going to talk about a few different people. I'm going to talk firstly about Ferdinand de Saussure, who was the founder, if you like, of semiotics, a Swiss linguist from the early part of the 20th century. I'm going to talk about Roland Barthes, who's a more important figure in semiotics. Barthes' key idea is linking semiotic processes to what he calls myth, and how myths are constructed in society, because the myth links to dominant ideologies. So once again, I'm going to bang on about dominant ideologies. And then we're going to do some semiotic analysis and have a practice of doing this, because one of the most popular essay questions in this module is the one where people do the semiotic analysis of the poster that I've put up in the questions. So, the foregrounding for this lecture is, if you do as I do in this lecture, you will do really well if you tackle that question. But it is systematic. One of the problems, I don't know, well I kind of do know why this is, because I'm part of a steering group in Wales that is redesigning GCSE and A-level media courses. And so in order to redesign something, you have to deconstruct what was already there. And I've looked at how semiotics is taught in Wales at GCSE and A-level, and it's an absolute disaster. None of the ideas are communicated properly, none of the method is communicated properly. So it's not very well done, unfortunately. The thing I would always say to students about semiotics is this: it's a process, and you have to outline the process really clearly. The worst thing that happens in January when I get essays about this, of people who've not attended the lecture here today, like 95% of the fucking course, right, is they'll do something like this. They say, well, the writing's in red, which connotes danger. Now, I know why students say that. It's because that's what they've been encouraged to do when they're doing it at GCSE and A-level. It's total bollocks. None of the semiotic theory says anything like that whatsoever. It is much more in-depth than that, and requires proper citation as well. So we're going to avoid all those pitfalls today. And this lecture will therefore be useful if you do anything around visual design, video production, etc. as you go forward. Why are you stuck? Okay, so semiotics is all about basics. If you get the basics right, you will not do badly. But being a basic bitch is actually an effort, okay? As the knowing smile of Alicia says, right? So, let's start at absolute basics. What is that? I can't. Say it louder so the good people in the room can hear. Alicia's answer to my question was, it is a dog. Do we agree? Does anyone dissent from this view? That this, on the screen, is not a dog? Okay, in a little while I am going to dissent and say that this is not a dog. But, for all intents and purposes now, are we happy to understand that this is a dog? Alright then, well let's go more basic. Because this is already way too fucking high level for this stuff, right? Let's take it down a notch. How do we know that's a dog? What features does that image have which tells us that is a dog? Honestly, we got to go to this level, all right? We have got to go down this far. Why is that? Okay, so let's have a counterfactual. Wrong. A word that I'm going to use very often for Alicia over the next 3 years. Wrong. That's not a dog. That's a cat. See, do you know why I know it's a cat? It has 4 legs and fur, and a tail. Cats have 4 legs and fur and a tail. Am I right? So it's a cat. Yeah? So everyone repeat after me, that is a cat. What do we know? Why am I wrong? you've identified a feature of this image which is unique to the category dog, right? It's panting. I think cats do pant.
Yeah. Only when it's like overly hot.
Yeah, but certainly not in the same way that because dogs do it when they're happy, right? Cats do it when they've got a monk on. Cats have always got a monk on, I should add, but cats are permanently angry animals, but that's why I like them so much. There's a kinship that I've got with cats, which I don't have with other animals. Is there anything else that distinguishes this as a dog? Cat's the same size. Shape. Face shape, shape of it, etc. etc. Right, okay. The point I'm making here is we all identify this as a dog. Okay? There isn't any false consensus in the room that this is not a dog. The dog has a set of features which we identify as being a dog. So when we say it's a dog, there's actually a whole bunch of work going on prior to that, which is instantaneous in our minds. We recognize the features of the dog as it is. Now, okay, we've got this word, dog. Are there any other words that can describe that thing? It's a sheepdog. So we've got a more specific term for it. Are there any other words which could describe that thing? Canine. Canine, a scientific term which describes it. So if I was to say that canine, you'd still know what I meant, right? And it wouldn't be incorrect. Okay. Do we have any other words? If I said, look at that hound, would you know what I meant? Fair enough, yeah. Okay. That image can have multiple words attached to it and they all still make sense. Okay? So just so we use the word dog, if I was to use an alternate term, you would still know what I meant. What was going on here. What I am pointing towards is the idea that we have shared concepts. That image of the dog there unlocks a series of shared concepts that we all hold. And when I use those concepts, they are sensible to you. It makes sense, right? If I was to say, if I was actually to start blathering on, which I know I'm blathering on already, right? But if I was to start with, so that cat up on the screen, and you're like, what's he talking about? What's the matter with him? He's definitely lost it. It wasn't a long journey, but he's fucking gone. Because it violates the shared concept that we have. Yeah? This, my friends, is the foundation of what we mean by semiotics, that we have a shared series of concepts in society that we all understand and that we have words and images which they correspond to. So, the Saussure basically unpicks this idea. Weirdly, before Ferdinand de Saussure's ideas, we didn't really have any concepts to explain why we all kind of understood what each other was saying. It's very, very strange to think about this, but before de Saussure's work, societies would be, talking about different things. And it's like, well, why do we all agree about that? So he answers the question, why do we all actually agree on what we're talking about? De Saussure proposed semiotics as a science that studies the life, and here's the key kicker word, signs within society. What we're going to talk about here is signs. We're not going to talk about individual words, we're not going to talk about images. Signs are, if you like, a higher concept than words, images, sounds, etc., to describe how meaning is circulated within a society. For de Saussure, signs are everywhere. Everything around us is a sign, and we understand those signs as part of a shared community of what he calls language users. Language doesn't mean just words and sounds at this point. Language also means visual communication as well. We have a visual communication language also. But we are all part of a shared community of language users, and we can utilize signs in order to construct meanings which other people can understand, and therefore we can all communicate with one another. So when I say dog, you know what I'm talking about. You know I'm not talking about a cat. You know I'm not talking about a table, another thing with 4 legs. Right? You know what I'm on about here. So de Saussure was interested in how this works, and he calls it a science. He uses the word science, the sign science, in a very deliberate way, because what he is arguing is that there is a deliberate and specific method for doing this. Science is all about applying standardized methods to understanding things. So de Saussure deliberately uses the word science in order to convey the idea that there is a deliberate way of doing this kind of analysis. It is not haphazard, it is not reliant on subjective means. There is an objective way of doing this. So, we have a dog, and we're happy with that, right? Okay. French speakers in the room. Any? A little bit? What's it in French?
We just, ironically enough, our French is really Welsh, so.
A Welsh French teacher.
Yeah.
I think it's the worst fucking combination. my French teacher was Welsh as well. She was fucking useless. Now, in French, we might say chien. Repeat after me, because French is such a beautiful language. Chien. If I was to come in here and say, look at that chien there, you would be like, what's he on about? But in France, it would be perfectly, or France, or I don't know, French Canada, or wherever you might be, it could be a perfectly acceptable word to use. So, we have some non-English speakers in the room, right? People who have a different first language. Yeah.
I understand it better than most people.
What's the word for dog in Afrikaans? One. That's about the extent of my Afrikaans right there as well. Give me another word for a dog. Hare. What's it in Welsh? Somebody tell me. Key. We got any other languages that we can chuck into this mix here? No? Okay, that's fine. Go on.
Shona.
Shona. What is dog in Shona?
Jumo.
I tried. Okay. I think I'll tell you more about later when you're talking about why is this important, why is this a thing. Shared language communities exist all around the world. There are different shared language communities to English. All of those terms for dog are absolutely correct, but they may not make sense to us because we belong to a specific language community. But for those people who exist in that community, it is perfectly sensible to use pet, for example, because they understand what that sign means in the context of all the other signs in their language. They understand that perro means dog. So, the original image here actually can have thousands of signs which describe what that image is. And it all depends on the context of where you are talking about that thing, what makes sense. There is no one fixed sign for something. This tells us that signs are what we call polysemic. I will explain what polysemia is in a little while. But it does tell us that there is no essentialism in semiotics. You might think, okay, well, why is this important? Well, it is very important as media students when you're analysing texts to understand who was the text made for. This is why the concept of audience, which I will talk about next week, still remains an important thing. Because depending on where you are in the world, you will be constructing media text to appeal to a particular audience who have a particular understanding of the signs in a society. That means your choices and how you represent things are dependent on who you are trying to represent them towards. There is no one universal way of doing things. So this influences how media producers construct media text. And indeed, even in one language community, it will influence the choices that people make, because you may be looking at different parts of that language community. You may be targeting teenagers as opposed to boomers. You may be targeting women as opposed to men. And the semiotic choices that are made will influence the shape of what is created in order to communicate effectively with those people. But to take on board here, importantly, there is no such thing as dog. Dog is just the sign that we use in this language community to describe that thing. Okay? And we agree on its meaning as a community. Hundreds of years ago, somebody could have come along and said, you know what, that's not a dog. That's a cat. And over time, that could have become conventional to call that a cat. And all of a sudden, all dogs would have been cats. And I don't know, all cats would have been washing machines. I don't know, it would have been a crazy time, I'm not into it. But we have decided dog means that. We didn't have a vote. You know, it wasn't put on a ballot. Over time and through conventional use of the sign, we have decided that that's a dog. But other language communities have different ways of expressing exactly the same concept. And this is where already you can think like, oh my God, semiotics is pretty deep. Yeah. What we have here is actually two signs working. The visual image is a sign and the word is a sign. These are different signs for the same things. The visual image there, that's a dog, right? The word dog means dog. Yeah? I know this is getting really abstract now, it's quite hard to follow, so stick with me because it will solidify in a second, right? But even in the original image I just showed you, there were actually two signs at work. I didn't need to say anything. Because when you looked at the image, you knew it was a dog. I didn't need to use the word dog, you already knew. So the visual image itself is a sign. It carries a meaning. The word dog also carries a meaning. Are we good so far? I know it's strange and weird, and I'm trying to keep it at the problem with doing this is it's at such a basic level that I'm skirting a very close line between being so patronizing that somebody wants to fucking brain me. I understand that. But it's worthwhile doing it at this level. So, here's the important bit. A sign is made up always of two elements according to de Saussure. So signs are what circulate meaning in a society. And they're always made up of two elements. A signifier and the signified. So if you like, sign equals signifier plus signified. It's like a mathematical equation, a very simple mathematical equation, but nevertheless, it is an equation. A sign is made up of a signifier and signified. So in this instance, the three letters DOG combined together to make the word dog is the signifier. What does that signify? Our mental concept of a dog, i.e. is a hairy animal with four legs, etc., etc., pants, etc., etc. All the things that we have associated in our concept of dog, if you like, is unlocked by the sign dog, the word dog. So, signified plus signified, the actual sort of characteristics of the sign itself, DOG, the letters put together. When we see DOG together and we can read, we look at that and we think, oh, dog. And there's a mental concept of dog which is triggered by that. That process together is called a sign. When we have a representational form plus a mental concept together, that's the sign. That's what de Saussure was studying. That's what de Saussure was interested in. Those two things combined together. So when we do semiotics, we are always unpicking what the signifier and the signified is. Are we good so far? Okay. As I said, signs don't just have to be about words. It could also be the photographic representation here, which also triggers that mental sort of concept of what a dog is. We see that and instantly we recognise features and classify it as a dog because it matches the concept that we have of dog as well. That's it. That's what a sign is. A sign is made up of two elements always, signifier and signified. The representational form and the mental concept. You keep that in your mind at all times, you will be fine. When you're discussing how signs are created, when you're discussing the meaning of any kind of text, ask yourself, what is the signifier and what does it signify? That is what we call a unit of meaning, which is called a sign. All good? Brilliant. Happy with that? Has anyone ever seen this before? We don't have any fine art fans in the room? Seen it? Do you know who it's by?
Ready, Marguerite.
Oh. Yeah. Dude. That's fucking high standard, that is. Alright? René Magritte. One of these French dudes who makes clever stuff to work with. Does anyone know what the phrase means? Do we have any GCSE French? Hmm? It is not a pipe. This is not a pipe, in fact. This is René Magritte's famous image. And it says at the bottom, this is not a pipe. What's he on about? What is going on here? Why, and you might want to ask, what are you showing me this for? What's the point of this? Does anyone want to hazard a guess? Okay, let's get again. It's always about basics, right? Is that a pipe? Are we happy that that is a pipe? Okay. So we look at it and our mental, we've got a representation here which triggers a mental concept that this is a pipe, right? So when you looked at that first up, get the words at the bottom. When you looked at that first up, what came into your head was, oh, a pipe is like on a pro-smoking crusade, always, but smoking's bad. Very, very bad. You looked at it and thought, oh, picture of a pipe, rock and roll. This is finally getting interesting. But Magritte's point is this: that is not a pipe. The representation is not the thing itself. That isn't a pipe. That's a picture of a pipe. A picture of a pipe is a different thing. A picture of a pipe, I can't smoke that picture. I mean, it wouldn't have the same effect. I could, well, you know, I'm not going to get into it. But, and if I did try and smoke that, I think I'd do like several years in prison as well, because that's a very valuable piece of art. A pipe is an object that I can pick up and put in my mouth and light and, you know, put various stuff in the top of and get baked. That's how it works, right? That's not a pipe. I can't smoke that. This is a representation of a pipe. One of the things that people have significant issues with when doing semiotics is this: mistake the representation as real. No representation of something is the real thing. A representation is always something abstracted from the thing itself. An image of something isn't the same as the thing itself. And you might think, okay, well, why is that significant then? Because signs are constructs. They do not replicate the real thing. Instead, they create a mediation of reality. All signs act to mediate reality itself. And this is very important to grasp when we're talking about how the media constructs meaning. The media chooses particular ways to construct meaning. That does not mean it is the real version of events, because all constructions are, keyword, subjective. So what we are looking at in semiotics is the subjective construction of meaning. There are no objective things going on here. So we've had a long and fruitful discussion this morning about the ontological don't worry about that word, I wouldn't expect you to use it, but the ontological features of a dog. But I just want to reiterate to you, that's not a dog. That's an image of a dog. And I've proven this by cutting its head off. In this image here, I have decapitated the dog. But there was no dog harmed in the creation of this lecture. I am an animal rights person, and I did not harm any dogs in the creation of this lecture. Harm myself, but not other things. Okay, that's, live your life by that, you will go far. That's not a dog. That is a representation of a dog. Are we good so far? Excellent. I love it. Okay. As I was saying, we know this is a dog because we have a set of conventional meanings in society. So let's test how conventional meanings actually work once I explain it. The key to understanding how semiotics operates as a theory, and indeed how meaning is shared across society, is the notion of the shared conceptual map. So, when I say the word orange, you think of one of two things. Either a piece of fruit or the colour orange. Orange is a great sign because it has a very limited set of meanings. Some of you might be football fans and might think of the Dutch football team perhaps, but that's because if I, and this is my own drawing, by the way, I think everyone should respect the artistic merit that I have here. Right? This is about as good as it gets for me. We have on the left-hand side, do you see how I've differentiated these two very hyper-realistic human beings, first of all? Yeah. So Mr. Brown Eyes on the left is saying to Ms. Blue Eyes, because I'm all about equality as well, Ms. Blue Eyes on the right, do you want an orange? And Ms. Blue Eyes is like, no, I prefer bananas. Ms. Blue Eyes is mistaken. Orange is vastly superior to bananas. But, nevertheless, it's her preference, and we're okay. Now, this only makes sense as a conversation because they have a shared concept of what an orange is. I know, you're all looking at me like, what? Take it down. Okay, I'm talking down here, alright? When I say, Juan, would you like an orange? You know what I'm talking about, right? You understand? Because we have a shared concept between us of what an orange is. And therefore the conversation makes sense. Okay? That is called a shared conceptual map. Now, it's a difficult thing to talk about because the shared conceptual map we have in a society is vast. It's absolutely huge. We share concepts with other people, literally millions of them. So when I refer to something, you understand what it is I am referring to. And we have this shared conceptual map amongst all of us. It's a kind of a beautiful thing. We are able to talk to one another about a myriad number of things, and we actually understand what one another is saying. This is how this operates. I just want to do a lead into this. Let's do some conventional meaning stuff. So, in one word, and no more, who can tell me what that picture means? So let it come. Bus? Okay. Anything else? London. That would be where my head went straight away. I look at that, I look at the red phone box, I look at the red bus, and instantly my shared conceptual meaning of that is, yeah, it's London now. That's not London. That's a representation. And we have decided that we have a shared concept here of what London's like. I was in London last week. London's, and sorry for any Londoners in the room, but London's a shithole. And, you know, does it look like that? Of course it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look anything like that. But there's a shared conceptual thing going on here. That is London, right? I've been going back and forth to London for 40 years. I've never seen anything like that in all my time. But even I have that thing that says, that's London. That's what we call a conventional meaning. We combine those signs together and we agree that that means that thing. So let's try another. What's that? Oh, okay, let me change the question. Where's that? Australia. How many people in this room have been to Australia? Don't look fuck all like that, I can assure you. Looks like any other place. I've seen kangaroos in Australia, but they weren't happily frolicking in the sun. They were mostly beating the crap out of one another. Very aggressive animals, kangaroos. Again, what are the individual elements here that say Australia? Well, we have kangaroos. They're a symbol, a sign, which we associate with Australia. When you see a kangaroo, the mental concept that's triggered is Australia. We have the setting sun in the background, because Australia is this sun-baked nation, you know, and where do we get that from all the crap that we consume in the media about Australia and all this sort of stuff. And the colours are interesting here, because you've got yellows, and yellow is colour associated with Australia as well. So there's a conventional meaning behind this. Is that Australia? No, of course it's not. But it's something I've pinched that off some really terrible tourist thing from a magazine that says, you know, come to Australia. What's that? This is more tricky, this one. Give us a one-word thing of what that is. Island. Fantastic. That would be exactly where my mind goes to as well. The clovers. It's green, it's a clover. It's like, oh yeah, island. And I've lived in Ireland and much like that, to be honest, yeah, but yeah. This is how conventional meanings work. All of those are taken from the same kind of media text. They're all promotional materials for tourism. It's a great example of how conventional meaning works tourist, because if you look at any kind of tourism advert, even on social media, look at something on Instagram that's trying to get you to visit somewhere. They don't ever use the name of the place. Instead, the classic of this is like visit New York, right? So New York tourist agencies, if you go on their Instagram page, you'll see images of Times Square. You'll see images of the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, you know, all the classic stuff, right? Never the words New York, because they don't need to. Because we have a shared conventional meaning of what those images mean. You see the Empire State Building, you think New York. You see the Statue of Liberty, you think New York. You see Times Square, you think New York. It instantly comes to mind. How do we know this? Well, not only did that shared conceptual understanding of New York didn't come from anywhere, it came from the hundreds of thousands of media text that we've experienced, which uses those specific locations to denote that it is New York we're in at that point in time. If you've ever watched Friends, you'll see multiple cutaways of those objects as they move from the next, you know, sort of twee bullshit thing that the friends do together. Exactly the same. And any other film that was set in New York. So, we have, thanks to signs, shared conceptual understandings. These are more complex because what you are seeing is a combination of signs put together to create a meaning, just like the fairy liquid advert at the beginning. Do you know what? I'm on time today. What is going on? Let's stop for 10 minutes. I will talk about Monsieur Bart when we come back.